The Innovators Network.
Welcome to the Killer Innovation Show, the longest continuously produced podcast in history. Each week, Phil McKinney brings you the insights and strategies to amplify your creativity and innovation skills. Here's your host, Phil McKinney.
Welcome to this week's Killer Innovation Show. Over the 18 years that we've been doing the show, we've covered a wide range of topics on innovation. Heavily probably skewed towards product innovation, service innovation, innovation skill sets, innovation antibodies, a wide range. One topic that we probably have not spent enough time on, yes, even over the entire 18 years, is on business model innovation. How do you think about the business model, and how do you innovate it? And what are the key components to think about when innovating the business model? And that is the topic for today's show. We're going to dive deep. This is a little bit of a longer show than normal, but we're going to dive into business model innovation. And we're going to take also a look specifically around agility, the ability to pivot, the ability to change your business model based on the changes that your organization sees or faces. So, before we hop into this week's episode, got that favor to ask: follow, like, and share. Follow us on social media, like this show, give us a thumbs up, give us a rating wherever you get your podcast, and then share. Let others know about the show. Show notes are over where they normally are. This is a little bit longer, but we will have actually a full transcript because there's a lot of detail in this show. So you want to hop on over, you can grab the entire transcript of the show over at theinnovators.network. Theinnovators.network will have the full transcript of this show because you'll want to grab a hold of that because there's a lot of detail in today's show. And with that, let's hop in to this week's episode.
This episode is sponsored by Zoom. With Zoom, you can streamline your communication, collaboration, and creativity all in one place. Zoom is the market-leading platform that provides video meetings, voice, webinars, and chat across desktops, phones, tablets, and conference room systems. To learn more about Zoom and sign up for your free account, visit killerinnovations.com/Zoom.
There's no question that business model innovation is a hot topic in today's business world. After all, who wouldn't want to be the next Uber or Airbnb? But what does it really take to create a new and successful business model? It turns out that business model innovation is not just about having a great idea, but it's also about execution, and let's not overlook timing. It's also about being willing to take risks and experiment. And of course, it helps if you have a little bit of luck along the way. So what does it take to create a new and successful business model? Let's take a closer look. First, let's define what we mean by a business model. A business model is the way a company creates value for itself and its customers. It includes the company's value proposition, the unique selling points that differentiates it from its competitors. It also includes the channels through which it reaches customers, the relationships it builds with them, the revenue stream it generates, and the cost it incurs. In other words, a business model is the framework that a company uses to generate revenue and profits. To be successful, a business model must be viable, scalable, and sustainable. A viable business model can generate enough revenue to cover its cost and make a profit. A scalable business model can grow to meet demand. And a sustainable business model can be sustained over a long period of time. Now, there are several reasons businesses need to innovate their models. First, the market is constantly changing and evolving, so companies need to change with it. Second, technology is constantly changing and evolving, which means the way businesses operate needs to change as well. And third, customers are constantly changing and evolving, so companies need to find new ways and innovative ways to meet their needs. If a company doesn't innovate its business model, it will eventually become irrelevant. Its products and services will no longer be in demand, and it can no longer generate profits. So, it's essential for businesses to continuously experiment with new models in order to stay ahead of the competition. So, how can a company go about innovating its business models? There is no one-size-fits-all answer to this question, as every company is different and every industry is different. However, there are some general steps that companies can take to get started. 1. Define your value proposition. What makes your company unique? What do you offer that nobody else does? Figure out what your unique selling point is and focus on developing products and services that capitalize on that advantage. Number 2, identify your channels of distribution. How do you reach your customers? Are there any new and innovative ways you can reach them? Can you use digital channels to reach even a wider audience? Number 3, build relationships with customers. How can you create loyalty among your customers? Can you create a community around your products or service? Can you find a way to delight your customers? Number 4, generate new revenue streams. What are the different ways you can make money from your products or services? And can you find new ways to monetize them? Number 5, cut costs. How can you reduce the cost of running your business? Can you find ways to automate or streamline your processes? Could you outsource tasks or functions that are not core to your business? Those are just some of the general ways you can think about creating a new business model. But how do you test it? If you've changed any of those things, how do you test a new business model? Because once you've come up with it, it's important to test it out to see if it's viable, scalable, and sustainable. Now, here are a few ways to take those changes that you're thinking about and test them. Number 1, pilot the new model in a small market. Testing a new business model in a small market can help you determine if it's viable and scalable. This will help you determine if the new business model is feasible and if it has the potential to be scaled up. Number 2, experiment with different pricing models. One way to test a new business model is to experiment with different pricing strategies. This will help you determine which pricing structures generates the most revenue from the new business model. You can also test different promotional strategies to see which ones are most effective. And you can experiment with different combinations of pricing and delivery methods. For example, free shipping. You want to see which ones are most popular with the customers. Number 3, use beta testers to test your business model. Beta testers can be invaluable resources in testing your new ideas, your changes. They can provide you feedback on how well the new model works and offer suggestions on how it can be improved. To find beta testers, you can put out a call for volunteers on social media or your company website. You can also reach out to customers who have previously expressed an interest in your products or services and ask them if they want to be a beta tester. Make sure to ask beta testers to provide detailed, complete feedback on a variety of aspects, such as the overall feasibility of the business model, the customer experience, what they think the impact on the value they receive, and what they think the impact could be on your revenue. For instance, would they buy more of what it is you're offering? And be prepared to make changes based on their feedback. Number 4, Get feedback from your stakeholders. When testing a new business model, it's important to get feedback from all of the stakeholders involved. This includes employees, outside partners, and other key stakeholders. Employees can offer invaluable insights into how well the new model works and how it can be improved. They may also have suggestions on how the new model can be adapted to better meet the needs of the company. Outside partners can provide feedback on how the new model affects their business and whether they see the potential for new kinds of collaboration. They may also have ideas on how to market the new product or service. Other stakeholders may have insights on how the new model is working and what changes, if any, need to be made. Gathering feedback from all of these stakeholders will help you make sure that the new business model is successful. And number 5, really important, monitor results closely. When testing a new business model, it's important to track key metrics such as sales, profits, customer satisfaction, and engagement. This will help you determine if the new model is successful or if it needs to be adapted or if you need to scrap it altogether. Now, when it comes to innovating a business model, there are several common barriers that most organizations will face. These include, number 1, lack of resources. Developing a new business model can be costly and time-consuming, and companies may not have the financial, human, or technological resources to invest in creating a new model. This can be a major obstacle for companies that want to stay competitive to keep up with the latest trends in the industry. Without the necessary resources, it can be difficult to come up with a new business model that's viable and scalable. 2, resistance to change. An organization's resistance to change can be a major barrier. This is because the new model may be very different from the old one and may not fit with the company's existing structure or culture. If there's resistance to change within the company, it can lead to conflict and delays in implementing the new model. It can also hamper the customer or the company's ability to take full advantage of the new business model potential. Organizations must embrace change in order to successfully innovate their business model. This includes being open to new ideas and willing to make changes. Number 3, fear of failure. Many companies are reluctant to experiment with new models because they're afraid of failing. They see it as a risk and are reluctant to take that risk. This fear can hold companies back from exploring new opportunities and reaching their full potential. Now, there are a few ways to overcome this fear. First, companies need to understand that failure is a natural part of innovation. Second, they need to create a culture of experimentation where it's okay to fail. And third, they need to have a clear plan for how they're going to learn from these failures. Number 4, lack of creativity and innovation. Some companies may not have the creativity or innovation skills needed to come up with a new business model. This can make it difficult for them to come up with innovative solutions that will help them stay competitive in today's market. Without creativity and innovation, companies will be limited in their ability to come up with new and innovative ideas. If a company lacks creativity and innovation, it may need to invest in training or hiring new employees who have these skills. It's also important for companies to create an environment that encourages creativity and innovation. This includes having open communication, encouraging new ideas, and giving employees the freedom to experiment. One option to consider: securing the services of an innovation agency like Tech Trend Group that can bring innovation skills and expertise to your efforts. Number 5, complexity and overwhelming choices. Complexity and overwhelming choice can be a barrier, a big barrier, because it can be difficult for companies to stand out from the competition. In order to be successfully innovate their business models, companies need to create a unique offering that is different from what their competitors are offering. However, with so many choices available to consumers and businesses, it can be difficult for companies to stand out and attract customers with their new business model. Another challenge that companies face is that the market is constantly changing. What may be popular today may not be popular tomorrow. So, in order to keep up with the latest trends and stay competitive, companies need to continually innovate their business model. This can be a daunting task, especially if the company lacks creativity and innovation skills. Now, let's talk through a few examples. There's a number of different ways you can innovate your business models. You can pivot your existing model, or you can create an entirely new model. Pivoting your model means making changes to your existing approach to business in order to make it more effective. A new model, on the other hand, is a completely new way of doing business and may not have anything in common with your current business model. There are a number of factors that contribute to success or failure of innovating your business model. Below, let's talk about, I'm going to go through a list now of a few examples of successful and unsuccessful business model innovations. Let's start off with successful business model. Number 1, Apple. Apple is a prime example of a company that has successfully innovated its business model. In fact, they've been so successful that they've created an entire industry around themselves. One reason for their success is that they are always been willing to experiment and take risks. For example, when they first introduced the iPhone, there were many skeptics who didn't think it would be successful. However, Apple was able to overcome those challenges and become one of the most popular smartphones in the world. Number 2, Amazon. Another successful company that has innovated its business model is Amazon. They were one of the first companies to introduce online retailing and change the way customers buy products. They've also been successful in diversifying their business into other areas such as cloud computing and streaming media. Amazon has stayed competitive by continually innovating its business model and exploring new opportunities. Next, Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines is another example of a company that has successfully innovated its business model multiple times. When they first started, they were faced with many challenges, such as high operating costs and competition from other airlines. However, they were able to overcome these challenges by introducing low-cost fares, becoming the first no-frills airline. This allowed them to compete with the bigger airlines and eventually become one of the largest airlines in the United States. So, just talking about the successful business model innovations is nice, but let's look at a few examples of unsuccessful business models innovations, attempts by companies to make change that was not successful. Number 1, Blockbuster. Blockbuster is that perfect example of a failed to innovate. It failed to innovate its business model when it needed to do it most. Many don't know that Blockbuster was one of the first video streaming services. It launched in January of 2002, but with limited consumer broadband in the marketplace, the market for this business model innovation was way too small to be sustainable, and they gave up on that service soon after its launch. When Netflix introduced online streaming, Blockbuster did not react quickly enough given its early attempt and experience, and ended up going out of business altogether. Number 2, BlackBerry. Another company that failed to innovate its business model is BlackBerry in the highly competitive market of mobile phones. When they first introduced the BlackBerry smartphone, it was a revolutionary product that changed the way people communicate. However, they failed to keep up with competition and eventually lost market share to companies like Apple and Samsung. BlackBerry was unable to adjust its business model quick enough to keep up with the changing market, and as a result, it ended up going out of business. And number 3, Toys R Us. It's another example of a failed to innovate in its business model. When they first started, they were the go-to store for toys and children's products. However, they failed to keep up with the times and eventually lost market share to online retailers like Amazon. Toys R Us was unable to adapt its business model to the changing market and as a result, found itself in bankruptcy. Look, business model innovation is a critical component of success for any and all organizations. However, it's not always easy to achieve. In order to be successful, companies must be willing to experiment and take risks. They must also be able to adapt quickly to changing market conditions. Agility is absolutely key. While most organizations think they have the innovation skills and resources when in the heat of competitive battle, some organizations simply cannot maintain the pace of change required to survive and succeed. This is often because they lack the agility necessary to quickly pivot their business model in response to the market changes. As a result, these companies find themselves in significant disadvantage and eventually go out of business. In order to avoid this fate, companies must continually invest in innovation and make sure they have the resources and capabilities necessary to succeed. Only by constantly pushing themselves to be better will companies be able to survive and thrive in today's competitive marketplace. So, what of all of the elements of your business model are you thinking could be a good case for innovation? What would you change? Would you change pricing? Would you change your channels, how you reach your customers? Would you change customer experience, such as customer care? Pick one area in that business model and think about some experiments. What experiment could you run? What change could you make? And then how are you going to track that? How are you going to measure it? How are you going to compare that change to what is in place today to know whether it's the same, better, worse? And then how do you do the next set of experiments? This is going to take a large number of experiments over time to kind of fine-tune the innovations that work in your business model. I would strongly advise that you not go in and change everything in the business model. Based on based on market changes, based on regulatory changes, whatever impacts your success, use that as input. But think about 1 or 2 areas that you want to change, that you want to innovate in your business model, and do it. Don't wait, execute. Because as we've said many times on this show, ideas without execution is a hobby. And true innovators are not in the hobby business. We're in about making innovations that have impact, that have change, that move things forward. So figure out what you want to change in that business model. Figure out what it is. Figure out the experiment that you're going to run. Figure out how you're going to measure it to know whether it's better or worse than what you already have today. And then do it. Run the experiment. See what the outcome is. You might be surprised. And with that, we're going to wrap up this week's show. Thanks again for hopping on and listening. We do greatly appreciate your time out of your busy schedule. Drop us a note. You can leave us comments over at theinnovators.network or over at killerinnovations.com, whichever you prefer. Drop us comments. Let us know if you've got suggestions for new topics or guests coming on to the show. Let us know. Drop us a note. Again, visit theinnovators.network, or you can also leave comments or send us a message over at killerinnovations.com. And with that, thanks again out of your busy schedule. Go work on your ideas this week. Don't let them collect dust in your notebook. Go out and change the world. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Podcasting nonstop since 2005, this has been the Killer Innovation Show on the Innovators Network.
This show is distributed by the Innovators Network. For more information and other great shows and content, visit theinnovators.network.